Hey folks, and welcome to Truck King. Today is exciting because we have this, the all-new Ram RHO, the top of the food chain off-road truck when it comes to Rams. But there are no V8s here. This thing is powered by a twin-turbo inline six. So we're gonna go off-road, jump it, drive it around on-road too, and try to find out, is a Rhino really better than a T-Rex? Let's dive into it. Let's kick it off with the walk around. So powering the Ram RHO is a 3-liter inline six twin turbo engine. It's making 540 horsepower and 521 pound-feet of torque sent through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now this is the same high output version of this engine that's available in other Rams, but there is just one key difference. It's right up here. You saw the hood scoop on this truck. That is a functional hood scoop, and you can see the airflow system here underneath the hood feeding that engine cold air. So Ram says that the spec sheets do say the same number, but because of that, this RHO should feel a little bit more powerful than the rest of the lineup. Now, yes, of course, this truck is replacing the TRX, and that thing had that monster V8. There is no V8 available here, which of course makes us a little sad, but one of the advantages, this engine is 150 pounds lighter than the V8 that it replaces, so it should really help with sort of that front end heaviness feeling that the TRX could suffer from a little bit. But yes, overall, we're still gonna miss that V8. There has been a slight styling update. The grille is revised, it's a little bit taller, and the bumper's a little bit different. So we do have a slightly better approach angle on the RHO than we had on the TRX, just over 30 degrees here on this truck. But yes, overall, the styling hasn't changed much. You still have these huge, massive, wide fender flares because this truck is 88 inches wide. And again, the overall dimensions didn't change from TRX, just a little bit of the looks. Now, as we roll back, we get to these big meaty tires. That is a set of 35-inch tires wrapped around 18-inch beadlock wheels. And behind them, the suspension components haven't changed, but the geometry and some of the settings have changed. So this is still using those Bilstein E-squared dampers. That is a fully adaptive and active set of suspension. Up front, they have 13 inches of wheel travel. In the back, there is 14 inches of wheel travel, which are pretty substantial numbers. Now, overall ground clearance here is listed at 11.8 inches, but that is body ground clearance, which is a good number. Sadly, though, the overall ground clearance of the RHO is down compared to the TRX, and that's because the rear axle ground clearance sits at 7.4 inches, where the old truck used to have 8 inches. So yes, technically we are a little closer to the ground, and I think it has to be the shock mounts back here, which hang down pretty low. Now yeah, we get to the back, same dampers, obviously those big 35s, and again, just this huge fender flare here, plus you get those RHO graphics back here. I do think it is a handsome looking truck. Why don't you drop in the comments now and just let me know, what do you think of the styling here on this new RHO? Looking at the back end of this truck, I should mention first of all that this is the only configuration you're going to find in RHO that is a crew cab with a short bed. One of the nice features you can get is this little bed step here for climbing up and in. Of course, our bed does have a tonneau on it today, but I can tell you it does offer a 400-watt plug and LED lighting, so you are getting some nice features back here. And then auto up and down tailgate. Now, when it comes to towing and payload, this RHO is also a bit better than the TRX it replaces because it's just a little bit lighter. So max towing here is 8,380 pounds. And let's go check the payload on the sticker. For this truck, as you see it here today, we're talking about 1,209 pounds of payload. All right, folks, now here we are behind the wheel of the RHO. And we're gonna start with a little on-road loop. We're gonna cruise around and just sort of feel how this thing handles on the road. And then yes, we are gonna go off-road in this video, and apparently we're gonna be able to jump it, so make sure you stay tuned for that, because that's gonna be fun. But Dad, like usual, you know what, we know these are off-road trucks, but we also know that most of them live most of their lives on the road. So yeah, I guess talk to me about what you're feeling, and we have to start with the engine, right? We know that this is essentially a TRX with a new engine. There's a couple changes to the suspension tuning, but not a lot. So yeah, what do you think about the Hurricane? 540 horsepower. How does it feel under your foot?
It feels fine. You've got power, you step on it,
yeah.
it jumps up and roars. The sound is less than desirable.
Yeah,
that's my only thing, because I mean, I miss the sound of the V8. You got twin turbos. You know, I think they're cranking out every horsepower out of this engine. That's the only thing that always concerns me when you're running something sort of at 110% max.
Sure.
However, this is the future. V8s are dead. This is what we're getting.
Yeah, and we can be honest, it's fuel economy and emissions regulations that essentially, you know, killed that big V8 at Stellantis. And Stellantis, of all the brands, they were holding on the hardest, right? They didn't want to let that thing go, but eventually they essentially had to. So that's why we're in the truck that we're in today. And you know what, before we go into more about how the truck feels and everything, I think we have to really dive into the price point, because that's such a compelling part of this truck here in the US. So for one of these RHOs, you're talking about a starting price at $69,995, so 70 grand. That's, you know, more than $10,000 cheaper than the TRX was. So right off the bat, you're saving quite a bit of money. And yeah, you know what, you lost some horsepower to the TRX, you lost the sound. But I don't know, personally, I'm happy to save that money and give up that V8. So I think they were really smart on the price positioning of this truck as well. The other thing I do want to mention, the truck we're in today is outfitted with the one package you can put onto it. So you're getting the passenger screen, the nicer seats, some of the nicer interior trimmings. This truck, as you see right here in the video, is $86,000. So, you know, not what I would call affordable, but still 86 grand for your top tier off-road truck isn't bonkers when you consider, you know, the Raptor R is out there selling for, you know, $130,000 to $150,000. So yeah, the price point in the States is, to me, one of the most compelling parts of this entire vehicle.
It's a good repositioning. TRX was the type of thing that, you know, some people bought it. You bought it because you just had to have it. It was not a run-of-the-mill everyday truck. It was not one that somebody would consider and say, well, I'll spend a few extra bucks and get the TRX. Right. No, you had to truly commit to the idea of spending all that money for the TRX. And you know what, 10 grand drop puts this truck almost into the mainstream.
Right.
Maybe a little bit at the higher end, but it's like, yeah, now you could get into this and still have this as your daily driver, and you've got something a little bit more exciting, and you didn't break the bank.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think we have to go into too much detail about some of the struggles going on at Stellantis and at Ram right now, but they've chopped prices across the board, and bringing this truck in at this price point, once again, they need to move trucks, so I do think they're making the right moves to try to kind of rectify their situation. And now we should jump across the border and talk about Canada, because I kept specifying the States. In Canada, the truck is not priced correctly.
No,
Canada announced that they were cutting Ram prices $4,000 to $5,000 across the board, except the RHO. They didn't touch the RHO price. So in Canada, the truck you see in this video is $115,000. That is after destination is added on, but still 115 grand. Yeah, that still has it at that aspirational price point. So we didn't get any benefit really from the jump from TRX to RHO. Granted, I do think it'll be a limited number that come to Canada, and Ram Canada knows we're not going to get that many, and we're going to sell them all at that crazy price, so let's do it. And before you jump in the comments and say it's not the right conversion, it's not a conversion. The Canadian price has nothing to do with the US price. The Ram Canada sets that price totally individually. So yes, it's a weird dichotomy in this one because I love the price in the States and I hate the price in Canada.
And it's terrible, but you know what? As Canadians, you already know we pay way too much for the same things that they get south of the border at a much better price. And that's everything.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that it is because we're a small market and they can get away with it.
Okay, folks, here we are now off-road in the RHO. We're here at Holly Springs Off-Road Park in Michigan. It's a bit of a wet, gloomy day, but that's actually awesome, keeping the dust down, making it just a little sticky out here. And the course they've laid out for us is actually pretty good. It's allowing us to build up some speed, because of course this is a high-speed off-road truck. And I'm joined by Peter from Ram, so he can answer some questions as we go. So we put the truck over into Baja mode. Again, we're looking for that sort of high-speed performance out of it. And I mean, Peter, right away I noticed the shift points are being held, the power's right there under my foot. But can you go through sort of all the things that Baja mode entails?
So Baja mode does a number of things. The transmission, you'll notice right off the bat, will not shift no matter how aggressive or mildly you're driving until it's at least 4,500 RPM. So what that does is it keeps the engine spooled up, it keeps the turbos happy, that it can get air pulls right away when you tip back into the gas.
Right.
Next thing on the list here, stability control. Really opens up the limits for you. It'll only step in if it really thinks you're in trouble.
Right, and I'll stop you right there because we're about to test that. They got this nice sandy area here where I should be able to really slide the truck. And of course in Baja it's a bit more rear biased as well. So coming into this sandy wash right here. Oh yeah, and that back end really steps out on it. And that's it. Baja mode knows that, you know, if you're in that mode, you don't want stability control stepping in right away and cutting your power or anything like that. And right there, it allowed me to get just as sideways as I wanted to. So yeah, stability control. How about the suspension? What's going on with the shocks in Baja?
So the shocks actually go to a very soft state in the center of travel, and as it gets near the limits, it starts ramping up the firmness. So there's a number of things there in addition to the shocks, right? We get a jounce bumper. These Bilstein shocks have a built-in jounce cutoff feature. So that really controls the truck near the end of its travel. So that way you get a really supple, progressive landing when you're, say, going off jumps.
Got it. Yeah, and again, the power it feels so good. The fact that the RPM is always up there, there's really no lag to speak of because it feels like the turbo's always spooled up and just ready to go when you ask for that power. And now, of course, I think it's natural. We have to compare it a bit to the TRX. And the TRX, first of all, just had more drama because that V8 just made unbelievable sounds. But the thing with the TRX is it always had a tendency to feel kind of heavy. Now I do think, straight up, and Ram says this, the TRX was quicker, 0 to 60, only 0.1 quicker, but quicker nonetheless. So yeah, and the V8 still had that kind of linear, old school V8 feel to it. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is this doesn't feel lacking at all. I don't get in here and go, oh my gosh, they really screwed up getting rid of that V8 because this thing feels weak or underpowered or anything like that. It doesn't feel like that whatsoever. The power out here feels super accessible, which is exactly what you want when you're off-road. And then I think the other thing I'm feeling is just this truck's a little bit lighter, 150 pounds specifically off the front axle, out of the front end. Just gives it a better weight distribution. The TRX had a tendency to feel kind of heavy, kind of beefy. You had to wrestle with it a little bit. This truck, yeah, doesn't really have that. And it feels more nimble than the TRX did. And nimble overall is actually a decent word for it. And then yeah, through the whoops, the wheel travel you have feels quite good as well.
Yep, we keep that same 13 inches of travel in the front, 14 in the rear.
Right.
Just, 4 years later than from when we launched the TRX, right? We're smarter, right? We've learned a lot, and we've kept feeding more lessons back into this truck.
And now here comes the real fun. Ram did set up some jumps for us. So again, let's feel how it flies, and maybe more importantly, feel how it lands. Now still, you know, a little bit front heavy. The nose does come down a little bit hard, but man, it's unbelievable for how heavy this truck is that we can do these things, and the landings are I'm not gonna say uber smooth, but it's a huge truck flying through the air. And the fact that we're not smashing down and the teeth aren't chattering out of my head is unbelievable. That's incredible. So incredible, man, that it can handle that. And of course, this truck is very smart, so when it does jump, it knows that it's in the air, and it does a number of different things, you know, on the fly to make sure that that landing is going to be as smooth as possible. Yeah, it's incredibly impressive what this thing feels like. And I'll come back to the point that we already made on road in the United States at $70,000 for the base version. That's a lot of performance. And it feels like these days we're rarely talking about good value in the pickup truck segment because it seems to have all disappeared. But after driving this and doing what we just did, I can confidently say that this feels like a pretty dang good value. Well, folks, that is it for this one. Now, this was just our first day with the RHO, and of course, as soon as we can get one back at the Ironwood test facility and put a trailer on the back, you know we will. But, Dad, you drove this thing off-road today as well, so, you know, what is your first impression on the new RHO?
The RHO is a lighter, better handling off-roader than the TRX was. And some guys are gonna yell at me. The only thing you lost by the TRX going away was the V8. This is a better truck.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you. It just feels more nimble. It definitely has that turbocharged nature. You need to put your foot into it a little earlier and kind of predict that turbo coming on. But outside of that, I think overall, I would take this over the TRX as well.
It handled everything we did here today, and this is a rough course.
Yeah, so yeah, the first impression is definitely positive, and then again, in the States, you get that value as well. But yeah, like I said, that's it for this one. Now, of course, we need to hear from you, so drop into the comments, let us know what you think of the RHO, and while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member of Truck King, and then come right back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya.
Bye now.